Then if you look at your guide sheet tells you to turn your cuff right side out. But if you look at that and you turn that cuff right side out, you basically kind of get a little bit of bubble on that seam. We want that bottom seam to be really, really crisp. And if you will take just a few minutes and actually press that seam open before you turn this right side out, you will get a crisper look when you're through. One of the tools that you can use to do that with is actually a sleeve roll that you can put up here on the corner or up inside that cuff to press that seam. I'll turn that around here. So if we press the seam, that style edge, and notice as I press, I'm only keeping the iron out in the seam allowance. I don't want to press on top of my cuff, because remember we had favored that cuff and the two pieces of fabric are different lengths inside there. And so I'm pressing that flat as it was sewn to set the stitch, and then I'm going to come back and press it open. And there are a variety of options of tools that you can use. You can just take the sleeve roll here and get, turn that iron the other direction, so that I am pressing that seam open. That can help you get up inside of the cuff. You might also want to use the point presser along the long edge of the cuff here, the long edge of the style edge. You could pop that up on top of the point presser and get your seam open. The point presser can only be used on the straight parts, can't be used on the curve, but it does make it so that you can press those straight edges of that cuff and help define that seam a little bit. So I take the time to press this. When the time comes, it will favor just a little bit easier. So I pressed that open. Another thing then after I've pressed it open that I like to do just on this bottom style edge is now reach the iron up inside and press the seam towards the facing. So I pressed it flat, I pressed it open, and then I pressed that seam just up inside that cuff along that long style edge towards the facing. And that will help as now I roll this right side out. Remember what it looked like before where there was a kind of a bubble along that style edge, so it lays flat and you don't see that bubble. If you look on the inside, by pressing that seam just towards it, you can see just a teeny tiny little hair of fabric from the cuff there, so that my cuff facing is favored. My seam as I'm wearing this cuff will be up inside and you will not see it at all from the outside of the shirt, and that's what we want. The ends here are going to tend to auto favor and pull themselves in, because remember this green piece of fabric, my cuff facing is actually shorter than my cuff, and it is going to tend to pull that around and favor that edge automatically. One of the things I like to do to get the curve to come out is I take the what we often use to poke the collars out, this point turner, and use the back side of it, the rounded edge, and take that rounded edge and just push it against my curve. And if I just roll that curve back and forth, it helps to give me a nice smooth curve that can then press and make sure it stays favored. And so I like to take the back of the point turner and just use that back edge against the curve and get that curve pointed out. Okay. And now I'm going to press this over a sleeve roll, the direction that it's going to be going, because it tends to curve a little bit, so it will press easier on a curved surface or a rounded surface. And take that edge and press that edge. Be careful to check on the inside that you are just truly leaving that barely favored style edge on the inside. It's on the bottom where you can't see it. Pressing on the top of fabric like this, you would be using a press cloth, but if I cover this all up, you can't see what I'm doing. So I'm not pressing with a press cloth. Okay. be careful. If you look here, you can see the green is coming up with my cuff facing. I've got to be certain that I roll that back to the inside again. And line that up and press that outside edge. But I want to make certain that I've got a pretty good favored edge there ready to go. And then if you turn it to the inside, you can now see I've got just a very slightly favored edge all the way on that inside there. Okay.